Hey, Quants. Today I'm going to be going over a little bit of what I've been working on for the last year. This is somewhat for myself and for others that are just interested because I oftentimes mention that I'm always working on different things or multiple things, individuals who might be interested in that material as well. So I'm not going to speak in detail about every single project, but I will just kind of go over kind of what I've been doing through the year. One of the things that prompted me to, like I'm an AI agent here, one of the things that prompted me to put this together was the fact that in 20 well it was essentially at the beginning of 2026 GPT 5.5 came out, and I don't remember if it was Opus 4.6 or Opus 4.8 at the time. I hadn't been using Opus much at that point other than for design work. However, I did kind of get this sense that the AI systems had really just hit a step level function. And so when that occurred, the story that I tell to my friends is effectively I had a huge pile of things that I had always wanted to do, or there was just kind of a to-do list that just kept growing, and I just felt like I was never making any progress on that as one person trying to do all these things. I just kind of came to the conclusion that all of this isn't going to get done, and so I just have to focus on the most important things, which ultimately I don't think is a bad idea anyways, because being focused on those most important things are likely where you're going to produce the most value. But having said that, after working a little bit more with GPT 5.5 at that point in time, just kind of came to the conclusion I can do all of this. And so that's kind of what I started doing. And I did just cranked out a whole bunch of different stuff. And so what we're looking at here is just this is a image. And I will mention one of the things that I did recently, which was a ton of fun and quite simple to do, was I had my Hermes agent on one of my other computers go and install the Korea 2 image model and install that and run it locally. That particular machine has a 3090 in it, so it's an older machine that I had for quite a period of time, but I think it has 32 gigabytes of memory, so it's the graphics card is still quite good, and especially for doing some running simple or smaller local LLMs. It's totally possible to use that type of system. It doesn't have the unified memory, which will allow you to get into the much larger with some of the much larger models that require over like 128 megabytes or gigabytes or something. But all that said, to the point, because I do a lot of image generation for branding content and just for fun, I was able to get this local LLM installed on that machine, and now I created a QA skill for it, and so I can just go ask my Hermes agent, or any agent really, because it will know how to install what it needs to install to run the local LLM. I can ask it to create an image for me, and it will go off and create an image. Now, historically, the reason I think that's been a little bit hasn't been a great use case is because the local LLMs, the image generation hasn't been that good. So Korea 2 has really done some great stuff with the images that I've been getting, and so the aesthetics of it have been great. So that was a little bit of a tangent back to the point here. What we're looking at is an image that I used that local model to create, but what I asked it to do is go and look at the end of day report that I do. Like many people, I have a couple of different cron jobs doing different things. And one of the things that I have it do is I have it summarize all the work that I do at the end of the day. And I started doing this earlier in the year. And so I had to go and pull all that data that I've been saving and give me kind of a presentation overview of what that would look like, what it would look like. And so this is kind of my beginning of year to date review of what I've been working on. And so one thing that's interesting, if you've ever worked in like an agile environment, is tracking your velocity. It's kind of interesting. Now, just like an equity curve, if you're trading, it doesn't always go up. You're going to have some slumps there, and you can see I have that exact thing. But what's also interesting to see is that my velocity has increased. Now, I will say this is in velocity based on pull requests. And so that means I'm getting work merged, but there is also an argument if that was useful work or not. So the thing, I think it's useful for most of it because obviously it's stuff that I have been using or working on. So for me, that's seems useful enough. So this kind of, so anyways, I won't just read this like a presentation. I'm just going to throw it up here. So yeah, in the beginning of the year, I kind of got this idea of like starting to really use AI more efficiently for a lot more things. And then I started doing, trying to automate a lot of things that I wanted to do, like the daily post, market post, and the posts there, in my opinion, have gotten, the presentation is something I always focus on. I really like the presentation of it. And I think they're fairly useful, quick reads, less than 5 minutes usually. And so just a real quick digest of the news. And a lot of it is stuff that I would otherwise probably go over to TradingView and look at the economic calendar and see what's on there, or go through my charts. And I still do go look at the charts and all that, of course. But for my quick overview when I wake up in the morning, I like to get that rundown there. And it includes, I think, the more interesting point for people that are into GAN trading or astrology. I mentioned in the past I'd kind of built it to help me learn, and so I have some points in it basically has like a GAN lesson every day and an astrology lesson every day, and as you can imagine, those become repetitive. So another thing, that a recent update that I've added there, is it will identify when it is pulling from a previous lesson. But what I have asked the AI to do when generating that content, if you're pulling from the past one, it will tell you that it's from the past, but it'll also tell you what it's adding to it. So it's not just 100% repeat. It's trying to add a layer or a different way of utilizing a similar concept. So to try and make those useful, because as you can imagine, trying to come up with a single lesson every single day, you might run out of content, and even the AIs can have problems with that. So, so research becoming reproducible. So I've built a number of different things. I did just release the TradingView or the strategy optimizer. And then I have the AI algo factory thing, which I don't know how much I've mentioned this, but it's basically, if you're working with skeleton key, it's something that I wanted to do way back in probably, I don't remember if it was 2022 timeframe, something that I had considered doing because TradingView can be slow when you're trying to run a lot of back tests. And I don't think that is always necessarily a problem of TradingView. TradingView has a very accessible platform, which is great for getting started. But when you want to do things faster, you might not want to use something so slow, and you need to be aware of the caveats. I've mentioned this in other videos, like the difference between a vector-based backtesting system and event-based backtesting system. TradingView uses an event-based backtesting system, and so those will be slower than a vector-based backtesting system. But I have this AI algo factory concept, which runs much, much faster. And so I am still testing all that, but many of these commits were related to that. And so research became reproducible, and then content became infrastructure. So again, that I kind of already mentioned, like the weekly posts that I do put out similar content on X, where I'm just posting GAN lessons or trying to frame the current state of the market in a GAN way. And then I also do a post where it frames it in an astrological way. And so again, part of that is me learning and also sharing that information. And the X, if you do follow me there, I don't put out a ton of that content. Is AI generated, but I'm not putting out a ton of it, so I'm not trying to flood everybody with it. It's 3 posts a week, which is not crazy. And then every once in a while, I'll jump on and post myself, but I don't do too much of that myself. So point about this chart is the velocity. So the other thing that I'm going to jump into is another thing that I asked it to create was I asked it to create an interactive web page. And so this is just a single HTML page. It's using the same image generator concept. And so it just starts here. We got the research. I just wanted to click around and share this with everybody because, hey, you might want to steal this idea for yourself too. Not just one, you get to play with AI and see what AI can do, but there's a lot of things moving here, right? So we've got a public page posted. that I can interact with and share with other people like I'm doing now. It's feedback for myself, so I can go back and kind of see what I've done. And then you also get the opportunity to just like see how AI what you could do with AI if you were doing this kind of thing. Now, of course, I have historical data because I've been tracking that for a while. But one thing I will note is in the beginning, wasn't doing this at the very beginning of the year. AI went out and told me when I started doing it. It was I think middle of February, and so there was about a month and a half of data that didn't exist. And I told it just to go to GitHub and pull my history from GitHub. And so if you've been doing commits or whatever you've been doing, if you give it read only, at least access to that kind of information, and maybe it can go scrape it if it's already publicly available on the web. If you're a content creator, it could probably just go look at your YouTube videos and do that. And then you can create something like this just to give yourself an idea of where things are going. So research, yep, kind of same idea. There's going to be some repetitive content here from the image I was just showing, but that was a flat image. I am going to mention, because I did some recent updates with Click Alchemy, which I've already shared, which allows you to upload your own images, and you can use those images to inspire, to just, I mean, of course, you don't need to upload them to Click Alchemy if you're just going to use that image wholesale, but you can use the AI generation for the thumbnail generation and use that image to either inspire the image that's going to be created, which is what I usually use, or you can use it as a remix, which is essentially it's going to use the same content. So if you have a thumbnail that you like, but you just kind of want to remix it a little bit and throw in some different elements, you could use it that way. Personally, I've been using like an image like that last image, which I don't want it to be my whole thumbnail. I just want it to be a part of the thumbnail, and then I'll use the inspire remix reference aspect, and then I've been getting thumbnails that I've been quite happy with doing that. So, so building, yeah, converting useful ideas, and so this is just calling out the different things that I've been working on. Crown AI, the Click Alchemy, QA website. This is the Quant Alchemy website, Crown website. This stuff down here was mentioning the AI Algo Factory, a Quant course. This is something that the Quant course, and this is another thing. Sometimes why I wanted to bring this up, because I had an idea of creating a course about how to teach like college level quant related material without needing to go to college. And so at the end of it, the idea would be that product you would have at the end of it would be this Quant in a box thing, which is similar to what like you might get with the AI Algo Factory, but you build it yourself and you own the code. And then if you want to modify the code or use AI to help to change the code, then you could do that. So that was kind of, but along the way, as you're building that, you're learning quant finance, financial engineering type of information while you're going through there. And then so strategies, that's just a repository I use to hold all the PineScript stuff that I wrote. Trading View Optimizer, this is really the name of the repo, but I should probably rename that because it's really Strategy Optimizer, but same deal, same thing. So moving on, validate. So ED cover, yeah, so that's another thing is like using end-to-end coverage for testing everything. So I like to automate my tests as much as possible. And so if you have objective metrics that you weigh against, that's very easy concept to do. So really not much to mention there. Publishing, of course, I've been publishing a ton of stuff. I got the market brief coming out there, the retargeting spine, that's some stuff that comes to me so I can see it. And then working on like the SEO aspect of the websites and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if I've shared it with everybody here yet, because I don't present a lot of marketing content, but just stuff I've been working on, and it could be related to the products like Quant, Click Alchemy and stuff like that. Is typically people that do SEO, but they also have GEO, which has been formerly known as like your geographical location. And so if you were a brick and mortar place, you would want to have like a GEO strategy. So if people are more closer to you, they're more likely to find you and come to you. But there's also GEO is generative engine optimization. So you have these AI kind of aspects coming into it. And then the other one is AEO that people might not be familiar with, which is Ask Engine Optimization. And so the point about that is when you're nowadays, when you go into Google to search, You'll get an AI type of answer, and the point about that is to present your site in a way that if AI was querying your site, it would give back answers that would make your site potentially what would help filter your site as a good fit for a potential person that would like to use your products or your site. And so AEO and GEO are kind of, even though GEO is like a dual term now, but GEO and AEO are kind of the new ones to consider there. So learning, quant course, QA skills. I've been writing a lot of my own skills. I did do a video where I said before about just AI in general. I haven't done a whole lot of stuff recently. What a whole lot of stuff. What I mean is I haven't created a lot of skills, and I like to keep my layer between the AI and myself very thin. So like using the Agents MD or your Claude MD, and then having a whole bunch of skills that you use can definitely change things, but there is a burden of needing to maintain those. And so initially I didn't find a lot of value in those, and the models were getting so much better for every iteration that I didn't want to waste time creating a skill that I later then needed to spend time figuring out if I still needed the skill or not, because then you need to, remove your skills, try things out, see if it's still working. If not, add the skill back. If the skill's not working the right way you want it to, you got to update the skill. So there's just maintenance overhead with that kind of stuff, right? So, however, I did start adding some different skills recently. Like I said, things that I think are generally useful and not always likely to change. So for example, this image generation thing that I'm playing with, it basically is a skill that tells the agent, how do you go and install this thing so that you can set it up to be able to generate images, and then that way I can do that. And something I've been considering, they have a new format for billing and I think it's called DPP. And so it's kind of like an ability for agents to process payments. And so one of the examples I saw, which actually got me interested, the example I saw was around this payment infrastructure, and they had used image generation as a use case, which is what made me which is how I found the Korea 2 model, because it's not something that was on my radar, and I just went and did that. But the whole point is that the financial aspect is that you could have an interface in front of it, and then somebody could come and generate images, and then it would, if you gave your agent like a wallet that they have access to with a small amount of dollar values, it could go run that stuff. Now, is that any better than using something like OpenAI? I don't think it's necessarily better. I think it comes a little bit closer to how an agent or how agents might work in the future. It does if you're into like crypto and the original ethos of crypto, like breaking out of the system and peer-to-peer models. It does give individuals like myself, I have a machine that I'm running this on. If I created an interface that other people could come use that, well, I'm burning electricity for providing that. And so that's going to cost me money. And as a result, then this is the argument for potentially using like microtransactions, because each image generation is going to cost me the amount of electricity that it costs somebody to use it. So it's going to be sub pennies likely to generate an image. And so an agent would be able to pay me like a fraction of a cent. And of course, if you're doing that, you would expect that you're using probably some kind of a crypto transaction or something to be able to get that fraction of a cent. And then they would get their image and you would have that hosted on an endpoint. And so there is far more infrastructure complexity in that, maybe not officially, but just the way that I explain that, you can imagine that's harder to wrap your head around. But I think still useful nonetheless, versus using something like OpenRouter, where OpenRouter, you get your API key, go do that, and you pay them. And so, which again, I use OpenRouter stuff and I do things that way, and I think that works great. One of the other issues with that, though, is the Korea 2 model. I haven't looked recently, but when I looked, because that was my original thought, I was like, oh, why do I spin up my own? I'm just going to see how much it is through OpenRouter, because that's the easy path. But I'm happy they didn't have it, and I ended up setting this up because now I have a functionally free method, and it's not free. I have to pay electricity, but it's such a small amount of electricity that I'm not even going to notice unless I had my agents go crazy on just creating images 24/7. So, which it's not. So, anyways, now I have a free image generator and it does a really good job. So that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to use some of the image generations that I use, because when other models come out, I'm still going to want to test those out. But in any case, that goes back to the learning aspect of that kind of thing. Obviously, this has been a huge learning year for myself and maybe for a lot of other people as well, even though I've been working with AI stuff for, quite a while now. I wasn't right on the forefront when ChatGPT came out, but once it started being something that I found I could actually use day to day, so probably then I've spent a lot of time learning, and this year just felt like a ramp up for myself, partially because of the models and partially because of my commitment to continue learning that stuff. And then compounding, I kind of touched on a lot of this, so you can see how as you learn these little aspects, it just compounds. And so, anyway, this isn't really saying much. This graph right here, okay, so moving down here, graph's basically the same graph as we saw before, building a lot of stuff. And then this actually, I was quite interested in seeing this chart here. So this is where it's saying all the work went. And so now again, what I want to mention here is that this is based on the pull requests. It doesn't really amount to hours or anything like that. One thing that I thought was cool here is I can products that I've been working on, the filters based on how things were. And again, this was just, I didn't imagine this. I just said, AI, go do something cool. And this is what it came out with. I thought was kind of interesting. But you can see Click Alchemy up here was by far the most commits. And the reason why I would argue is because the models weren't as good. And so it took more turns getting things right. And Click Alchemy was also the first project that I just went 100% AI with, meaning that I might have written a couple of lines of code in that project. I did read through all the projects, all the code when it was being committed. And then when you go to review it, you can view that in GitHub or whatever repository management tool you're using, and you can review the code. And so I did go in there, and oftentimes I would give a feedback on, hey, I don't think this is working right, we should fix this. And so there was a lot of back and forth in that. And so I think all that said, it just took the AI a lot more commits or pull requests to get things the way that I wanted them to be. And also as an artifact of being the very first project that I just said, if I can make this work with AI, then I'm just going to do it, because it wasn't something that I had time to commit to writing code myself, which also makes me think of another analogy related to this. And it has to do with electric bikes. So if you go mountain biking or road biking, a lot of people started complaining when electric bikes came out and said, what's the whole point of these electric bikes? I mean, you're not using your legs at all. And there was a counter argument that I heard to this, and it came from somebody that was in the financial independence community, Mr. Money Mustache. I don't even know if he's around anymore, but this was quite a while ago, if you can imagine. And one thing that he mentioned that I thought was a very good point is, if I like to commute to work and on my bike and I have to use my leg power, I am going to be limited on how far I can commute on my bike. And so I believe he lived in Longmont, and he was talking about commuting to Boulder. And he said that's going to be like a 40-minute bike ride or 40-minute to an hour bike ride. And then when you get there, you're going to be sweaty and smelly, so you're probably going to want to take a shower. And then after a hard day's work, you're going to have to do that same commute back home. And so doing that every day might be difficult. Now, if you have a electric bike, you can do that in 10 to 15 minutes, and you're likely to not be sweaty, and you're still riding your bike to some extent, because at least not all of them, some of them just have that little hand motor you can use, but some of them you still have to pedal a little bit. And so if you're doing it for a functional purpose like commuting versus like I'm just trying to exercise, I think that is a strong argument for that. And so I think that just couples back to this point here of using AI in a similar way when I personally already know how to code and it's something I've been very successful at. It's one of my strongest, assets that I believe I have in terms of being able to provide value. And I do think there is a large distinction you can see between individuals just writing AI to produce. Most people now can just use AI and get code. And while the code AI is producing is good, I still think there is quite a large distinction between seeing people who know how to write code utilizing AI to produce products versus people who don't know how to code using AI to produce products. And at the end of the day, maybe that doesn't matter too much, but from my own standpoint, I can see a huge quality in the difference based on the code that I've seen from that's just straight up AI written, and and I'm not talking about somebody getting in and changing the AI code. I'm just talking about the way that somebody prompts the AI to create the code so that it's written in a better way than somebody that doesn't actually know how to write software. So I imagine it'd be the same thing if you told somebody to go build a house, somebody who knows how to build a house, telling somebody else to go build a house and giving them the idea of how to build it, or reviewing the plans with them to build it, would do a much better job than somebody who has no clue how to build a house, and then they're expected to guide them on how to build a house. So anyways, that's my analogy there. So anyways, where time was spent, the QA website, this is probably related to the briefs, which again came out earlier in the year. And so this was again probably like using AI and the AI models not being quite as good. Crown AI. This one I've spent quite a bit of. This one was the one that actually consumed a significant amount of my time, and not just AI stuff, because there is a lot of technical aspects to Crown AI. And so in the repository, it's listed as Crown AI. If you guys have been part of the group, it's the Krong AI thing that Crown has been working on. And so he and I are working on that together. And we've been slowly inviting users to join that group and test out the product. And so if you're interested on that, there is a wait list, which I've shared in the past. If you go to Krong AI, you'll be redirected to the wait list. It's not officially open yet, but if you're on the wait list, there's a good chance that you could get in early. So, and then, other things, just moving on. I won't go over all of these. And so, numbers first, narrative second. I'm not going to go over any more of this. I think I've already spent quite a lot of time here. I think I just wanted to share this as part of a recap for myself, and then also just, hey, there's things I've been working on when I say I'm working on all these things. So if you guys found that interesting, do the whole like and subscribe thing. If you are interested in staying in touch, I do have some more videos coming already planned. That's another thing, is that I'm starting to get so many ideas that I might end up producing video content a little bit more frequently, at least until I get the pipeline of ideas out here that I want to get out. I wanted to do this, although my interest in this kind of has been fading based on some of the other stuff I have been seeing and working on. What will be coming up is T3 code. So that was one of my most popular videos, and maybe I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but for those of you who have stuck around and you did check out the T3 code video, I will be doing another iteration of that because they leveled that thing up again. I mentioned that they have the T3 Connect aspect to it, and you didn't necessarily need that because you could use Telescale. I had historically had issues with the Telescale Connect, and with their T3 Connect solution, I have not had any issues with it. In addition to that, and this is probably the bigger thing, is that they added mobile applications for it. So you could still always access it through the web. And so that's kind of how I would do it through the Telescale network. But their mobile app is on point. And I won't spoil everything there, but they have some cool tricks in there that I've never seen anybody else do that I've always wanted. And if you've ever been like me, wanting to play with the idea of using something like a tablet, is this something like a small little tablet that you carry around as your daily development device, but it doesn't support a full development environment? I think they might have fixed that for you. So that will probably be coming up in the next video. So stay tuned. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace, Quants.